Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
What's up, everybody, to the Epic Table Games audio show.
You forgot welcome to the Epic Table. Yeah,
Wait, what'd I say?
You just said, what's up, everybody, to the Epic Table Games audio show.
I did, oh no.
I mean, with all the episodes, you botched that one.
Oh well, I'm just gonna let that slide. You guys heard I said welcome in my mind.
All right, what is up, Potato?
I'm tired, apparently.
Oh, dude, that was just a few weeks ago. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing in that last episode.
So this episode we are gonna talk about some house rules.
Yeah, and it's
good and bad and the ugly.
You know, I think probably because we do have our favorites we've talked about before.
Oh yeah.
We do have some experience with some really bad house rules.
Oh yeah.
And there are some house rules that I've come across I just don't understand.
Even some house rules that your one and only Potato presented and failed. It did not stick on that wall, and it breaks my heart.
Is that because it sucked?
Actually, it was pretty bad rules.
Probably. I mean, I've actually taken to heart one of your DM house rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as a player, it's fantastic. I just add 8 to everything.
I knew it!
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
So, we've already covered that some of my favorite house rules are max hit points for just the players.
Yes.
I really like that one. In fact, I think that's the one that I really stick to most.
It's super easy. It's most convenient when you're making a character.
Right.
It's great.
We're heroes. They're heroic. It's just another little extra notch in their heroic belt.
Yep.
And I want to say that
it's not game breaking.
No.
It just makes it easy, if you ask me.
Well, it doesn't even make it easy. It just makes you less squishy.
Well, yeah, but it's not like, I gotta make a 6th level character that's roll my HP 6 times. Oh, all ones.
Well,
cool.
Okay. Yeah,
right.
Especially during character creating.
Yeah.
When you're looking at higher than a first level character. Another one I really, really generally enjoy is during character creation, actually, is for our stat blocks, 5d6s, roll 1s and 2s, and take the highest 3.
Right.
So that itself is kind of made up. Granted, I also like the roll a d10 at 8.
Yeah.
And then for heroic games, roll a d12 and add 8.
Yep.
Because you can still get low of 9 but high of 20, or low of 9, high of 18.
Yeah, I feel it's a very good ratio, especially if you want the real epicness of being a hero.
Yeah.
I mean, people really dig that. People like high numbers in their stats to begin with.
Right.
But, I feel one of my more favorite rules is kind of the same vein, kind of the hand waving of using components for spells.
Yep, we do that one a lot because it's such a pain to keep track of.
And further extent would be the spell slot / spells per day. Because if you got a multi-class of 2 different casters,
Sure.
It's mind-melting trying to figure out, okay, how many times can I do this? Do I have enough slots for that? Do I have this spell? What's going on here? Yep. I smell burnt toast.
I understand that one, and I think for ease of play at the table, one house rule that I've been exposed to and I kind of stick through is you essentially sack the spell components and you just replace it for gold value.
Yes.
So every single one of your spell components already has a gold value to it. So instead of using spell components, you just burn through gold.
I feel that gives it a balance still.
Yeah,
it makes more sense.
It's fast, it's simple, it's quick and dirty. And
now, real quick, isn't there an item, the spell component pouch?
I think in most games they have some sort of spell component pouch. There's also, I don't remember if it was house ruled and became raw. I don't know what system. I want to
Okay.
swear it did, but it was any spell component less than 25 gold pieces can just be omitted. You don't
Right.
have to keep track of it. You do something like buy a spell pouch or something, or
Yeah.
there's a general spell component thing. You buy it one time, you're good for anything under 25 gold pieces.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah, it's got you back for the little chump change.
Right.
Yeah, I feel that makes it so much easier for a caster, because for me, doing magic stuff is so tedious. It's tough sometimes.
And I mean, if you look at a lot of things where eschew materials means you don't have to have material
Right.
spell components, you have to waste a feat slot a lot of times to get rid of spell components. But if you just house rule exchange for gold pieces, that's good. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that.
Oh, yeah.
So again, I mean, I like those things that make gameplay fast, easy, and way more enjoyable that you're not bogged down by stupid rules.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So one of the things I want to talk about real quick is a really crappy house rule.
Lay it on me.
We've covered some good ones that we like. So I'm going to read this directly from Carbonite Copy, who posted in a house rule thread on Reddit.
I like that name.
Absolutely. So here, I'm going to read it word for word. It says, played for a very long time, regretfully, with a DM for Pathfinder 1E that had a house rule that if your character was surrounded by enemies or obstacles in all 9 squares around you, that you were overwhelmed and automatically killed.
What?
He says he had a level 9 fighter die because 6 goblins cornered him against the rail of a boat, and he was not pleased. He said that it was unrealistic for anyone to escape being completely surrounded. He goes on to say he got a bit of revenge. Though. Even I played a summoner druid and kept surrounding his big bad evil guys with donkeys. He was too proud to admit that his rule was dumb and still kept it in after I face rolled an entire campaign. Oh, wow. And honestly, oh my god, that sounds like a horrible house rule.
Yeah, I mean, I feel if the situation were to arrive where you would actually be surrounded all 9 squares, regardless of what creatures they were, it shouldn't be automatic death.
No.
No.
I mean, if we'll take Carbonite Copy's example here, where he says that he was a fighter. So, level 9 fighter, nonetheless. He could have
powerhouse.
Yeah, he could have definitely had things like cleave or cleave, etc. So he could have felled one and moved to the next.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, 9. Well, his example is 6 goblins cornered him against a rail of a boat. He could have jumped off.
True.
You know, he could have escaped.
Yeah.
He could have made an athletics check to go around. He could have taken the attacks of opportunity to move through spaces.
Yes.
There were options that he could have used.
Overrun. Combat maneuver.
You have to have at least 5 foot of movement in Pathfinder for that.
True.
Or
Yeah,
it might
okay,
be
never
10.
mind.
You might have to have 2 squares in front of you.
Okay. All right.
So there were options. And
Yeah.
I don't think that this DM was in the right at all.
No.
Like, horrible scenario. I
Yeah.
think the revenge Carbonite Copy is talking about is amazing because they're donkeys nonetheless.
Donkeys, like, yeah, you know what he was insinuating there.
Right, absolutely. So that is a crappy rule.
Gosh.
That I think if anybody puts in their game after hearing this, seeing anything about this, burn in hell.
Yeah, I feel overall, any house rule that institutes automatic death is immediately a dick move.
Right. Now, I think something like 320's instant death. I mean, it's a rare occasion.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's fine. It's not
That's
really.
fine.
I think it's partial house rule. I think there's some places that talk about that rule as an alternate rule.
Right.
I think because of the rarity of it, it is amazing.
Yeah.
And
You can't sully natural 20s 3 times in a row. You can't just sully that and just like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. You gotta make that special.
Early in my DM games, I was like, nope, it's not gonna fly this time.
I don't want him to die.
True. Well, I didn't because it was the first round. And as I look back on it in that scenario, I remember the character I had used for the big bad evil guy, and I hate to say that I was just kind of shooting from the hip in my early DM days, but he was actually immune to criticals anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But god damn, the party was pissed off that I actually ruled against it. And as they should have been, because they were under the assumption it would have been fine. But he was technically immune to criticals. It should have never gone through. Anyway, the first one should have been like, he's immune to crits. It's not going to go through.
Well,
it's going to be a regular attack.
If you ask me, if a creature is immune to criticals and you get a crit, instead of doing the regular crit bonuses, if you even did 3 nat 20s, instead of doing the insta-kill, why not do incrementing exploding dice?
Now, I have done that before, and exploding dice is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And
when you first showed up to me, I couldn't wrap my hand around it. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't understand. I could not catch on until we got rid of it. I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to do it now. I got it.
Now, for those of you who don't know, exploding dice is when you roll max. And there are 2 ways that I've seen it done in tabletop games, the D20 systems.
Yep.
Very popular. If you roll max like your D20, you get natural 20, you can roll your natural 20 again.
Yes.
And that works great on things like spell checks.
Yep.
The other one is on things like damage rolls. If you roll max damage, you can roll again.
Usually it's for damage,
Right.
From what I remember correctly.
Right.
But yeah.
And then I actually came across something that's not exploding dice, but it is essentially the idea of when you perform something to a unnatural but not critical success, sort of like you succeed against a difficulty check by 10 or more, you can roll something like damage again. So for example, if your AC is 15, I roll 25 to hit.
Right.
Even though I'm not critical, it's still hard enough to break that 10. I can roll a second damage die.
If memory serves, I think Pathfinder 2E has something like that going on. If you hit someone's AC 10 over their AC, it's like a critical or something like a critical, or maybe it was like additional damage die, if anything. I think it's a great idea. I think like you're doing a pick lock and you're 10 over the DC. It should be a lot more than just, you picked a lock. It'd be something more rewarding.
Right.
Because that's pretty good, especially when you get high level. You know, you want those successes be more rewarding if you get 10 over. I think it's a great house rule.
Yeah, and actually, as I'm reading some of these threads, it looks like in the game of balance here. And I say that because, I mean, everybody says that the edition wars are over or they're still going. It doesn't matter where you fall. I mean, when we talk about the edition wars, everybody knows that we're talking between Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about, if your attack roll is 10 or more, then the enemy's AC is an automatic crit. This bad rule, they said that his DM applied it to both characters and the enemies. So the bad guys, if they got higher, 10 higher than your AC is automatically critical. And he says his squishy caster type was killed in the first round of combat when they got to the big bad evil guy. And the conversation thread is actually pretty fun because it sounds like it was borrowed from Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which we haven't played, but I have looked into a lot of the differences. And they're super wild to me right now. I really gotta read more into it. But in something like Pathfinder, that is actually balanced in your health pool. Yeah, that's taken into account. It's not taken into account in D&D. So the idea is that, there's just too much going on in the one game. We're gonna borrow bits and pieces that don't work. Yeah, and we're gonna roll with it regardless of how bad it is. Now, generally, I don't mind because there are a lot of things that you can sort of borrow and modify. But the key is modification. You've got to make them work in your system. Exactly. They don't just not work. We've kind of talked about a few good rules. One really crappy rule. How about a mediocre one? One that you can remember.
Mediocre rule. I will bring up a rule that I tried bringing in because I thought it would give it a bit more variety and make it more entertaining. But overall, everyone felt it would just bog everything down to a creep and crawl. Mm-hmm. So what I had in my head was, you know how 5th edition has inspiration. And Pathfinder, I think 1st edition, the only thing close to that is the cleric's bit of luck. But having the ability to be like, hey, I want to spend this X, like, currency, this special thing. I want to spend this point in order to re-roll or try to get a better advantage because this is a very dire situation. I want this win. I felt was super impactful and special, and you needed that in a game. So, I was thinking for Pathfinder, I don't want to just steal inspiration because I'm like, you already got a bit of luck. Everyone's gonna be confused. Like, we're not playing 5th edition, blah blah blah. So I had a deck of cards. I took away the face cards, so it was only 1 to 9. And in my head, if I remember correctly, the red faces were positive and the black faces were negative. And I randomly would give everyone, I think, 2 cards. Had to be face down. You would not know what cards you had. Mm-hmm. And before you did your roll, you would say, I'm going to flip a card. I think my deck of cards was like a fantasy unicorn faced one. So I made the term, you flipped a unicorn. I don't know why. It sounded cool in my head, but it really didn't sound cool at the table. But before you did your skill check, they really wanted to get finished. Before you did your attack, they really wanted to hit. Like, all right, I'm going to roll. I'm going to flip this card. You announce it. So you roll, you flip it. If it's a black face card, it's subtracting from your result. Mm-hmm. If it's a red face card, it's adding to your result.
Okay.
So let's say you want to intimidate this guy. Got super high intimidate, but you really want to make sure you intimidate him. You roll 19. You got plus 10. Oh, man, 29. I'm definitely going to get it. Then you flip the black 10. The 10 of clubs. Nice. Like, oh, no.
Right.
And it's like, oh, sorry, it was just not enough to intimidate him. He laughs at you. And it's one of those moments I felt would be special because you never know what you're going to get. It could be good, it could be bad. It'd be a lot of, like, throwing your hands up in the air or cheering. But everyone thought that would just make everything creep to a crawl. And overall, I have to agree with it. But I think something like that would still be a good idea. But it's mediocre at best.
I mean, if you could find a way to leave the randomality, but find a way to balance it, maybe only use certain cards.
Right.
Or scale down the amount of cards, would be fun. But adding that extra step does slow down the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, most people want a fast-paced combat. And I remember kind of looking at the idea of trying it, and I mean, it has merits. I think, honestly, merits would be stronger used in that scenario in social interactions versus combat.
Yeah.
Because...
that's why I brought up the intimidation thing, because it felt more for social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is good. I like the idea. I think the idea is just in need of refinement, essentially. So kind of toy with that, and we could really work it out. So I think for a mediocre house rule, and this one, it's one of those things that a lot of people try to do and force, and that's in your multi-classing.
Yeah.
You cannot just gain a level in another class. Like, you have to have a reasonable in-story explanation on why you gained a level.
Right.
And I extend that to the idea of one of my very good friends who you're not familiar with, but he really strongly believes even when you level up your character, there has to be some training involved. So it's not you're
putting story to make your level up make sense.
Yes.
I feel that does make 100% sense.
It does, but I think it's mediocre because at the same time, in his games, you would be stuck at level 5. You could have the experience to take you up to level 12, but if you cannot find somebody to sit down and train you, you are stuck with boatloads of extra experience points.
Well, I feel that's also up to the DM. The DM should have a way to provide that for you. Mm-hmm. Because that definitely would lend to mixed levels. So you got a party where one guy's level 10 and the other guy's level 5. That's going to screw up your encounters big time.
Yeah, it can.
So you don't punish your player by not giving them the ability to level up if you want to institute that rule of you need a story reason why you leveled up.
Right.
That reminds me of a story that I listened to in another actual play podcast a while back. They were doing a Jade Region campaign. So it was all, Oriental style. This guy was, if I remember correctly, he was a ninja Can't remember exactly what class he was, but he wanted to dip in samurai. Well, in their certain area, there's no samurais around, no nothing, and they're kind of doing the same house rule that there's got to be a reason. We can't just magically know how to be a samurai out of nowhere, because the samurai is kind of like a cavalier. We got like, what was it, like an edict you had to follow. So the DM had this little side mission going on, and it led him to a tomb. And they uncovered a samurai sword from the corpse, and the sword was sentient of the spirits that trained the samurai that's in the tomb.
Okay.
So this samurai sword basically became his mentor and helped him train and hone his skills. And it was a super big part of the story, like levels after. I think 2 books later, they still have the sword telling him that, cool things and doing this and that. Great idea. It felt like Star Wars in the sense, the way that they did it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like you uncovered Qui-Gon Jinn.
I can see that.
It was really neat.
I can see that. So as I'm reading more,
Yeah.
I come across another one I think is ridiculous.
Another bad one?
Oh, God,
Oh,
yes.
man, juicy.
Oh yeah. So again, this is from Reddit, Mars Alter. It says that he's played with a DM, and his DM said, "I don't know what hit points are supposed to represent, so I won't tell you how much damage you've taken."
Huh?
Right? I mean, like, what?
Why am I playing?
Yep. I mean, seriously, I've had people who are like who are really hardcore about that. They have zero room to allow metagame talk at the table.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
how many hit points do you have left? I got like 11. I need healing.
Right.
Well, honestly, you wouldn't know what hit points are, so you can't really ask him that question.
You have to go for visuals. While I'm bleeding out my stomach, you think he can see that?
Right.
I shouldn't have had to tell them.
Right. I love the meme.
I'm bleeding.
I love the meme that comes across like on a scale of 0 to your max hit points.
Yeah.
How badly do you look hurt? Yeah, I mean that's again, yeah, that house rule kind of sucks. I mean, seriously, players don't want to die; they want to succeed.
Yeah.
Taking away that opportunity to use that for a simple gauge is quick.
The thing, yeah, because it makes it where the DM is now deciding your fate when it should be up to dice rolls and your strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a good idea there. That does lead me to another house rule that I remember reading about, actually, for death saving throws. The DM would, of course, have the stats of the players on his screen, and if they were unconscious, need a roll saving throw, the DM will roll it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it gets around his turn again for the saving throw, you gotta tell him, "Oh, well, you stabilize, you get back up," and a little brief, little cool flavor text of how you got up, you catching your breath, or be like, "Oh man, you're still struggling, you're gonna have to do another save."
Yeah.
That gives the tension a rise, but I still feel taking that away from the player could be detrimental.
Yeah, it can be.
I feel me as a player, I'd want to roll my save.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line. It's my save.
I think that is feasible. I think there are certain scenarios where it may make slight sense for the DM to do it.
Right.
For instance,
if it's kind of behind the curtain, you really want them to not know and be surprised. Sure, but not all the time.
Right, and I think doing it all the time is harsh. I think anytime a dungeon master essentially takes a role away from a player, they're breaking character anatomy.
Yeah. Kind of taking the immersion away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to do this for you. Well, why? For one, and what I mean, yeah, it's really, why is like, you stop at why. Like, why are you going to take it away?
Right. You know what?
Why
Here, take my character sheet. I'm going to go get a beer. See you tomorrow.
Pretty much. And I mean, we're literally talking about games where players become endowed into their characters. They become attached. They really enjoy them, and they become parts of their characters. They don't want to give that up.
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, come on. So yeah, just it can be pretty bad. I'm coming across another one here. It looks like somebody's complaining about some DM in 5e. He says that illusions are instantly recognizable as illusions. That's his house rule.
That's not how illusions work.
I mean, seriously, if that was the case, why would you play an illusion spell ever?
Right.
I mean, that's...
What's the train of thought on that house rule?
Yeah, like, if you can see that it's an illusion, I mean, I understand that in a lot of cases, you can disbelieve an illusion, but you have to know it's an illusion, and then you still have to figure out that it's an illusion. You just don't know first.
Right.
Why would you ever believe an illusion if you know?
The greatest illusion is life itself. If you really think about it.
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna be philosophical right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already horrible.
It's just a matrix, man. You gotta learn to unplug. Illusions are immediately detectable, and you cannot do any kind of illusion magic because of that. That makes no sense. You're taking literal archetypes out of the window now. That's crazy.
Yep. Someone's complaining about HP bloat. I guess they're just kind of complaining about how people have mountains of HP, which is exactly the house rule I absolutely love. Just, max the hell out of that right there. Here we go. Here's something that I'm running. Rustless Rodney. It wasn't him that hated it, but apparently everybody else in the party hated this Pathfinder rule. The GM had decided that sorcerers not needing to prepare their spells meant the sorcerer had access to every spell in their spellbook at all times and only had spell slots to worry about. We've done that.
Yeah, that's what... He's a spontaneous caster, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think that was a house rule that we did one time, that you don't need to prepare. You don't need to take the time to swap them out. You just got to allocate your spell slots, and that's it.
Right. And we did that specifically for ease, to make things quick, simple. I mean, we're really looking at Pathfinder itself as a rules-heavy game.
Yeah,
and it's
very, very chunky.
Yeah, and it's already bogged down by a lot of different things. So anything that you can do to speed up the game, make it easy, playable, enjoyable, is fair game in my opinion.
And if you ask me, doing that streamline of how your magic works with your characters and the classes, it really isn't breaking the game. Right. It's not like you're allowed to cast more at a time. Right. It makes it easier for you to get that crucial spell that you needed to get for your situation. Because there's been many moments before we instituted the rule where it's like, oh man, I don't have the spell prepared. Now this encounter is basically impossible. If only I had the spell.
Right.
Like, I need to spend an hour, or I don't remember how long it takes to get prepared. Hold on, guys. No, you can't. We were in the middle of combat.
Right. And I think I would consider
it's tough.
Yeah. I would consider it something like hot spell swapping.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can plug a computer mouse into a computer at any point in time and it runs and works no matter what, why can't I do it with a spell?
Exactly.
In my mind, I don't mind that one at all.
I think it's fine. I feel, I mean, it's weird to say, but I feel treating a tabletop role-playing game a bit like a video game when it comes to the streamlined ease of getting things to mechanically work and just get it going instead of being bogged down for 20 minutes every time you need to make a decision is totally, in my book, the better way to go.
Yeah,
it's great.
And
oops, sorry.
Now one of the house rules that we talk about spells that I enjoy. Actually, not just spells. I will consider it in combat flow control.
Yeah.
And if you do not know what your character is doing, you have a small set amount of time to figure it out and describe it. Otherwise, you are holding your action or delaying.
Oh, get the little sand timer.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
I had a
tick
DM
tock, tick
at
tock.
one point in time. It was everybody had exactly 6 seconds, which is the length of time in a round. And
it makes it very hardcore. You got to think ahead before it's your turn.
I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But sometimes saying what you're going to do in 6 seconds for this DM who was super hardcore was obnoxious because you had to break it down to what you could actually get out in 6 seconds. If it was, I'm going to charge, attempt an overrun check, and do this, he'd still require you to roll your dice and everything in your 6 seconds.
Now that's a little too much.
It was a dick move.
Because I feel even in combat, it's a great time and space for you to institute role play and story elements and character development.
Absolutely.
You know, like, oh, my guy looking up into the rain, getting his last breath in his chest before he does his last charge. Instead of being like, oh, well, he does a charge attack.
Well,
Roll.
Okay, so that first example, that's fun, as long as it's not overused.
No, yeah,
If
sure,
every
sure.
player does it every turn,
Right.
I'm going to pull my hair out, and the guy
Get out with it!
right, and the guy's like, oh, I just charge. I'm like, whatever. So you're not as invested as everybody else, but at least you're speedy. Come on, there's a fine line somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to kind of role play it and stretch it out, make it cinematic every time, but you have to have the ability to do so if you wanted to do it.
Yeah, I agree, and I
Can't do that in 6 seconds. Get out of here.
Right, and I mean, come on. What if you take a 6-second dramatic pause? Move on.
I like to hold my action so I can just hold my action and be cinematic.
You know, I've had people try that, and it's great. It's also resulted in party member deaths because they've done so. I mean, there's a fine line. Straddle it if you want.
There's this other house rule that I heard. It kind of reminded me of it, talking about the whole interaction. It was the anime house rule.
Okay, I'm not.
So you hold your action, and if you're still alive after X amount of turns, you can then take all your turns at once. Kind of like how, like, let's say Goku took forever to get from Snake Way and meet up with Vegeta and Nappa and then starts kicking their butts.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that.
Okay.
You're just kind of sitting there taking sweet time. Let's say you're meditating. I don't know how you ever want to word it. And then it's like, oh, well, I got saved up 5 turns. Now I'm going to take all 5 turns now. It's stupid, if you ask me. I like the idea of it, but the fact that you're just going to sit there, but yeah, I'm just going to wait another turn. I'm going to keep holding and just pay all that turns up front like a bad check. Like, come on. No other party member is going to be okay with, oh yeah, I'm going to keep you safe so you can not get hit. Because the rule was, if you get interacted with and making if you got attacked or whatever, then you have to act and roll, and you can't hold your action the same way again.
Right.
So, like, there's a little bit of a balance there, but overall, that rule I think was dumb. I can't imagine, oh, it's round 10, I haven't done anything yet, thank goodness, I'm going to attack you 10 times. Full round action, at each turn. That's what? At least 20 attacks.
Right.
Brutal. Disgusting.
Right. Now, I keep reading on. Some of these are funny. They're bad. Ready for another one?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this player, Dalen, I'm not even gonna mention his name. I don't know how to say that. His DM said sneak attacks only apply when you strike from being hidden to the creature, not flanking, and he also required that you had to be behind the creature.
See, I understand what he's thinking there, but if you're in an actual fight and you're distracted looking at the guy in front of you, if there's someone on the side, they got advantage, full blown.
Yeah, and I think
especially when you got weapons involved.
Right.
You can't tell me that's not sneak attack damage.
Well, I think
that's precision damage in its core.
Absolutely. I don't think that's doing anything but hindering the rogue or anybody who has sneak attack damage.
Yes.
It's a scenario where if you don't have sneak attack damage, you're fine, but if you do have that ability and you cannot use it under certain circumstances, it is a crappy rule. And I guess it comes down to saying that the DM himself hated sneak attack.
It could be that the rogue kept putting a niche in his plans. He's like, you know what? I'm nerfing you.
Maybe. And so our player continues to say on that he says that there's a rule that really irritated him the absolute most. And I've seen this rule in play. I don't like it either.
No?
You have to exceed the difficulty check. You cannot just meet it. I've got to beat it.
I feel the meet it, you beat it rule makes so much more sense.
Well, that's because it's like, it takes an 11 to do it.
Right.
It's not, it takes 10. I mean, it's 11 to do it.
I remember when you explained it to me, the DC is like 12. What that means is it's actually 11. You have to get past 11 But it's we're saying 12 because that's the number you need to get.
Right. That's
how it works.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it. And honestly, if you think about it, let's say it is 12. You need a minimum of 12. It's kind of like squeaking by. It's
you barely made it.
You meet the bare minimum requirement to do this.
You pick locked the door, but you broke the pick in the process. Kind of success.
Yeah. It's success without grace.
Exactly.
I think it is horrible to say that you have to be at least 1 high. And I think the example I gave you, it accounts for it. 12 is the 1 high. It is the one above the 11.
Exactly.
I think it works best that way.
Me too.
Another one that I have issues with. Some people like this one. Some people hate this one. Nat 1 is a critical failure.
Yes.
God, that pisses me off. I house rule, and I like this house rule, that Nat 1 is not critical failure, but if you have multiple attacks, your first natural one just stops the rest of the attack sequence. You missed. It allows somebody to say, well, if I have 2 or 3 attacks,
right?
I don't get the rest of those attacks. Essentially, you're taking a penalty like a critical failure, but it's not something that I've seen like, oh man, roll on your critical table, you lost a leg because you lost control of your sword.
Right.
Seriously.
Especially if you institute crit and fumble cards that Paizo has for Pathfinder. Yeah, that makes it total like, oh no, I can't believe this just happened kind of moment. But also makes it so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you ask me, Nat 1s, I feel, makes the most sense for it to be a critical failure in a sense of combat. But for like initiative, social interactions, skill checks, I feel Nat 1 shouldn't mean automatic failure. You should still go off of your bonus and still go accordingly. Same with Nat 20s.
Yeah.
Just because you got a natural 20 perception doesn't mean you see everything in the world.
Now
the DC could still be higher than what bonus you have.
Now that's just it. In the rules, in D&D, in Pathfinder, and other D20 based systems, in Modern, Starfinder, etc., older versions, new versions, and I'm assuming every future version that comes out, your natural 20 on skill checks is not an automatic success.
Right, and it shouldn't be.
No, and people treat it like, I got a nat 20. I'm like, you know what, celebrate that nat 20, and what's your total?
Yeah. Well, a natural 20 on your initiative gets you what exactly? Mm-hmm. Why are you so excited?
Right, and as we're reading about this...
It's because of the nat 20, that's why.
Now, we're talking about this organically, and I just come across, coincidentally, somebody talking about natural 20s on skill checks from Tempest Franget. Another dumb rule was natural 20s on skills being automatic successes. We got rid of that when my character managed to jump to the moon. I mean, seriously, if you're gonna...
I rolled it, you saw it!
Right, and if you're going to play with some dumb kind of rules, you're going to expect kind of dumb results.
Exactly.
In fact, it reminds me of a story, and this is something I want to talk about in a future episode, because it's a base on shenanigans, and tavern shenanigans are some of the craziest, ridiculous things that you can do.
Oh, yeah.
And the story is a player makes a deal with an NPC that he can walk up to the bar, piss all over the bar, and get in absolutely zero repercussion trouble from the bartender. Okay? So that's the gist. The setup is that he strikes a deal for gold with the NPC, and he strikes a deal of gold with the bartender to let him do it.
That's smart.
So, one guy's losing out on gold, 2 guys are gaining gold. And in this scenario, you roll a natural 20 because those are all going to be skill checks, and it's just automatically super successful. I mean, we're talking about, in this scenario, a grotesque action. Like, it's just gross.
Yeah.
That is not considered publicly acceptable in almost any time frame.
Exactly. You wanker!
Right. You're looking at a lot of downsides here, but if you're rolling nat 20, I mean, even if that DC is 30, and you're like nat 20 instant success, you don't get 30. It's not
exactly
the difficulty class. Exactly.
Your bonus is on that is still a 2, so it's a 22. Get out of here.
Right.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right, and oh man, absolutely horrible.
Can only imagine. Why are you going potty on my counter? Oh, you persuaded me to be nice to you. Have a good day. Like, no, that's not how that works. Sorry.
Right. Let's see, here's another one. Wandering to Nowhere says, playing 5e, going through the Storm King's Thunder hardcover. The DM was relatively new and already kind of annoying. Then one day, around level 5, he announced this brilliant new house rule that he was implementing to add realism. He says it's unrealistic that you can still fight just as well injured as you can at full health. So every time you take damage, you have to make a constitution check. Not a save, just a check. If you fail the DC, you get a level of exhaustion. The con check starts at DC 10, increases to DC 12 at 75% hit points, 14 at 50, 16 at 25. Of course, once you get that first level exhaustion, all future con checks are now at disadvantage. And of course, levels of exhaustion can only be removed by the usual once per long rest or greater restoration, which is above their level to cast.
Oof.
So he was playing a relatively low AC barbarian, and he was the only melee character, and the rest of the group were all stay back and cast spells or attack from range. It was common for him to get hit 6 to 10 or more times per round in normal combat, and he would have literally died from exhaustion in the first combat. It took them 45 minutes to convince him that the new rule was bad, and he still grumbles about it for weeks after.
Wow, like, that sounds really hardcore.
Yep.
And too difficult to really hurdle over. You can't balance that.
No, you can't. And I think this scenario...
Gosh.
I mean, the idea of adding realism is fine.
Right.
But truthfully, you can continue to fight.
Yeah.
After taking.
Have you heard any of the stories from World War II?
Sure.
You know, survived several grenades and shots to the stomach and this and that, and they're still running, shooting.
Right.
You can't tell me, like, oh, I'm so exhausted, I just can't.
Right.
No.
I mean, there's no time to be exhausted in a major combat.
Yeah, you're fighting for your life. Adrenaline is keeping you going.
Right, so...
if anything, institute a house rule where you got adrenaline points and stuff like that to combat the quote-unquote exhaustion. I think exhaustion is too hardcore of a condition to put on you anyways in the middle of combat.
I think it's a great condition, but
it's a hard one. That's what I'm saying. It's a hard condition.
It's a scenario where getting exhaustion shouldn't be easy to get.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sure, somebody can cast exhaustion. That's one thing.
Right.
But you can't cast it multiple times, and the effects don't stack.
Right.
So we're literally taking a disadvantage in any scenario and multiplying its effects. So, I mean, it's not exhaustion scales 10%, 20%. It doesn't double. I mean, you literally, one exhaustion twice. I mean, that's twofold. That is 100% more devastating the second time around to this character. And it's a bad house rule. I'm glad that they found a way to veto it. I'm sorry it took 45 minutes.
To be honest, though, I do like the idea, at least, of having a threshold system with the HP. So where you got low HP, you're like really fighting for your life and trying to figure out something to make it a bit more entertaining and not just, oh, I don't care about what number my HP is, I'm going to keep rolling dice.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at the idea of a house rule that goes along that I've seen. I've seen it in scenarios where it was awesome, and I've seen the same exact house rule in scenarios where it just didn't have the same amount of gravitas to it. And that's a last stand type maneuver.
Yeah, you tell me about that.
Yeah, we can be, we have 5 hit points left, you're bloodied up, you're out of options, and I couple it with the idea of the rule of cool. You can say, okay, I want to do this action. And as the DM, using this sort of last action, last stand type house rule, I can say, okay, I will give you X amount of bonuses.
Right.
But in doing so, it will drop you to 0. It's a last stand maneuver. You can get a second attack. You can add double to your damage. You can go all out.
Right.
You would have to do a move action plus a standard action, but you're trying so hard, this extra effort. It's essentially kind of like DM discretion of hero points or inspiration points,
Right.
to help progress story. I think that's an okay thing.
I love it. I love the idea. It's your last stand.
Yeah, and it's a phenomenal situation, but again, it's not something that you can just use every time. But you can't really chunk it out to the point where favoritism comes into play. You can't say, yes, it works here, it doesn't work here.
True. What about a half orc with the orc ferocity racial trait?
Where they can still go after 0 hit points, but they risk falling down and dying.
Yeah, something like that. After they hit 0, they still go for one more turn. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So let's say you do a last stand and you're a half orc. And oh, well, I'm at 0. My second wind of last stand. Dot.
Sure.
How's that gonna work?
Kind of unfair.
You're gonna have to be like, well, if you're gonna do your last stand, I'm gonna treat this as your arc ferocity. And
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do that.
Oh, I absolutely agree. With that. So as we're getting close to the end of the show here, there's one that I want to talk about, and I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time on it because it is one that I despise. I've run into it. I hate it. And there are so many GMs, game masters, dungeon masters who do this.
Oh, I know what rule it is. Add 8 to everything.
I don't think a whole lot of them do that.
Oh, it's just me? Oh, sorry.
Just you and me as a player who's trying to stick it to you.
Son of a gun.
Okay, so this one has to do with a stat that I absolutely love and skills that are super awesome in social situations.
Okay.
And it is the charisma stat. And dungeon masters who just ignore charisma checks by any means, any stat, any skill, and they just want you to role play it out.
Right. If you, the player, can't match the charisma score of your character, you can't really get away with the same stuff that you think you should be able to.
Right.
If you got a high charisma bonus, you rolled high on your persuasion, diplomacy, and then, oh, well, how's that sound like? Role play it out. And you're like, please, sir, I don't know what to say,
Yeah.
Like, you can't punish them for that. He still
Right.
rolled that result.
Right. And I really, really want to drive home a point here. If you have to role play it out, and you are going to lie, and the GM, the DM, they know you're going to lie, there is no check that they have to make to just say you're lying.
Right.
There's no check and balance. It is just simply, I don't feel like believing you, so
Exactly.
I'm not going to believe you.
It's
And
garbage when they do that. It's such a
it is
big move.
BS. It is absolute BS. I think these skill checks, they were designed in the game for a purpose.
Exactly.
Your intimidate, your social checks, they are there to, like you said, help modify the individuals who cannot charismatically play this out.
Right.
And I think it's fun to compromise between check and roleplay. Like, hey, roll your check, and we can converse this out a little bit.
Right.
And your check is influencing the
Yeah.
results.
If you rolled low, then role play how that would be. If you rolled high, do your best to role play how that would be.
Well,
do that before. There's people that will role play and then roll the dice.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that.
You just
because-
gotta respect the result over
Yes.
the role play.
Absolutely.
When it comes to those skill checks for the social encounters, that's the reason why it's on there on paper.
Right, and I'll take a scenario. Let's say you're saying all this and you just had a roll. You're like, I'm using diplomacy, and it sounded really good, but
Yeah.
you rolled a 2, you get a total of 7, and I sense motive higher than that. I'm not buying dick of what you said. I mean, that's how it goes. It doesn't have to mean that your delivery was bad. It just means it's easy for me to call BS.
Right.
I mean-
That right there will put the weight on the DM having to make that feel like he did good still, but I just I was better than you. You
Right.
know, not just you suck.
And what I like here is that as we've been talking about these bad house rules,
Yeah.
you know, new players who don't have a full grasp of rules will sometimes modify rules to fit their vision,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah. Especially for DMs, they do it all the time. I did it.
Right. But these are really bad house rules I think most game masters should just stick away from.
Yeah.
Or at least modify them so they're not as ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the idea of playing any sort of tabletop role-playing game comes down to the fact that it's the player's story in the Dungeon Master's world, and they're the heroes. Even if they're playing an evil campaign, I mean, they're still the protagonist of the story.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
You know, if you make it difficult by any measure every step of the way, no one will want to play.
Exactly. It's like, why am I even trying?
Right. And that's what a lot of these bad house rules do. They make it difficult every step of the way. And you cannot say, I'm doing it in the name of realism. No, you're not doing it in the name of realism. You're just shortchanging your players.
Yeah, you're making it harder for them. If you want something harder for them, raise DCs. Make the counters harder. That's it.
There are ways to do it. You do not have to be a dick by changing the rules.
Yeah, you're basically nerfing them and making them not want to play.
Right. And God, that bothers me the absolute
Gosh.
most. As a dungeon master, it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. The goal is to make it fun and enjoyable.
Yep.
So
Bottom line.
Yeah, and we can end it with that, guys. Make it fun and enjoyable. So, all right. Check us out on Facebook at Epic Table Games. We have a Facebook group at Epic Table Games where you can join the conversation. Check us out online, epictablegames.com, where we have a growing community that needs your input. It's actually still really small. I wish it was growing better.
It'll get there.
I hope so. It's still there for the availability. We offer play-by-post as well, so if you want to check that out, we would really greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, we will see you next week.
House rules for life!
Epic Table Games! Show with the paladins of the podcast, Rob and Potato. Until next time, stay in touch on Facebook at Epic Table Games and online at epictablegames.com. Yeah.